Don't try now anymore. Don't try now anymore. He was beginning. He just started something. Irwin. One thing you do, one Irwin.
Jai Baba to all of you in the West. I am Eruch. I speak from Ahmednagar, and I'm happy to see you all, although I don't see your figures or faces. Yet I know very well from the reports that I have heard how anxious you all are to gather every bit of news of our beloved Baba. I salute all of you for your deep love for beloved Baba. Jai Baba to you all. It will all depend upon our dear brothers, Irwin and Edward, how they ask me questions and remind me of the stories of Baba. Because with the advancing age, I seem to forget many stories unless and until somebody reminds me of them.
Well, we can begin with one, Eruch, and that is how you became to be the interpreter of Baba's hand signs and hand gestures.
Well, there is no story behind this. You ask me that we should begin with how I became the interpreter of Baba's hand gestures and signs. Well, I can't recall a particular day when I became one. It was so natural. It seems to me that I was one of the Mandali by Baba's side. And when Baba used to use his board, sometimes when the ones who were reading Baba's board failed in trying to decipher Baba's fast-moving finger over the board, giving out the words, I used to butt in and pronounce the word. So it must have happened once, twice, thrice, 4 times, till a day came when people who were around Baba found that I could read the board. So I started reading the board. Baba encouraged me. And that's how I first started reading the board.
Do you remember one of the first messages that you read?
Oh, no. I remember any first messages that I read from Baba? No, it's impossible. Because it was so natural, you see. It was just one day, that's all, that I began to read. I may not have read the first message. I may read out some first admonition given by Baba to somebody. Who knows? Then it so happened, you see, that for years together, when I was in presence of Baba, I had the privilege of reading Baba's board. During the must tours, or during the visits to the West, or during his visits in India, either for giving mass darshans to the public here, or paying house visits, I had to be very alert. It was Baba's patience alone that carried me through, because on many an occasion I would fail to read Baba's fast-moving finger on the board. And through his infinite patience, he would repeat the same words again and again, till I picked up the right message. Many years rolled by, and it so happened with the years that passed by, my eyes began to get tired. And Baba would often tell me that he was himself fed up of his silence, because he had to interpret his thoughts through the alphabet board. Then he started giving me assurances, month after month. Then it became weeks, and then one day, Baba said he would drop using the board. And it was just a surprise to me, because many a time Baba had told me that he would stop using the board. Of course, it was a sort of a relief when I heard that. Little did I know the repercussions of Baba stopping the use of the board. The day he stopped using the board, everything came to a standstill. Baba wouldn't condescend to even say out anything. It was very, very difficult for us to converse with Baba without the board. We became helpless, and our beloved Baba, who was continuing his silence, remained helpless without the board. A day passed, another day passed, and then we had to beg of Baba to find out some other ways or means through which he could communicate to us what he wanted. Of course, there were the usual gestures of Baba for tea, say, suppose. He would do just this for tea. Then for water, he would do this. For milk, he would do this. Those could be followed, you see. But then what about the regular conversation? Day after day, we missed that. So I think it was on the second or the third day, we pressed Baba to give us some outlet. And then he said there was nothing more to be said. There was nothing more to be conveyed to the world. He had given so many things out through his alphabet board in his silence. But then I was hearing certain rumors, you see, that he was going out on tours and that he would be meeting the public, you see. He would give audience to the public. And I was feeling very, very sad as to how would it be possible for me to communicate whatever Baba wanted to the people, or to the group, or to a family, or to an individual who approached Baba, or who would remain in Baba's presence even for a minute. I was the one who was most anxious that Baba should drop using the board, so that it would give rest to my eyes and the concentration that I had to have at the time of reading the board. Just as Baba expressed that he was fed up with his silence, so was I must tell you frankly, fed up with reading Baba's board. But then, this dilemma was confronting me when he gave up the use of the board. How to communicate, what to tell people, what Baba wanted us to know. So, I implored Baba to give us some method by which we could freely communicate with Baba and Baba could communicate with the people. One evening, I still remember, it was at Satara, about 70 miles from Pune, where Baba was staying. He called me by his side, made me sit down. Baba was on a sofa set, and I was squatting in front of him. Just then, he said, he gestured for the first time and did this. And he said that was A. I said, A? Baba nodded his head. A. My face brightened up. I felt very much cheered that Baba is now going to give me the alphabets for the first time. Then it was B, Baba said, and C, and D, and he pointed to his ear saying that it is E. And then he gave no sign for F. And then he said, here is G. And here is H. And then he gave no sign for the letter J. F and J were not mentioned by Baba. Then K was like this. K. L, M, N, O, or O, P, and Q would be this, and R would be this, and S would be the opposite of R. T, the famous sign T. U, V, W, X, Y would be this, and Z he would point out as this. So I learned the alphabets from Baba. And then, of course, Baba also practiced the alphabets, you see, and started forming little words from them. And as days passed by, we were amongst ourselves, that is between Baba and myself, very free with the conversation. And that's how I started to decipher his gestures through the fingers, the signs that he made. But I must tell you all frankly that reading his fingers was not the only means of communication. The stress, the emphasis that I had to put, for that I had to read his facial expressions too. How big his eyes he would dilate, or how he would bring out a smile, or the expression on his face, or cheeks, or on his forehead. Every little expression. How he would press his jaws, you see. All that counted very much, very, very much, that I could communicate the right sense that was to be communicated from Baba to the one to whom it was directed to. Through Baba's help and grace, I could read his finger signs fast, faster still, and very fast. And you may call it his grace or his will, that even I could, before he could finish the word, I could put in that word completely. Before he could letter the word, so to say. Just as if he wants to say word, he starts saying W-O-R, and before he finishes R, I would say word. So, people who were around him, and even the Mandali who were around him, felt that Eruch was trying to say things out before Baba wanted to say anything. And with a very jolly mood, you see, Mandali would sometimes come and say to me that, well, they wouldn't call me out by my name as Eruch, but they would say, hello, Baba says, come out, Baba wants you. So my name, I was nicknamed as Baba says, because every sentence I had to say would be, Baba says, and then decipher the gesture. Otherwise, they would think that it was Eruch who was speaking out. So I was nicknamed, and I'm still named as sometimes as Baba says. So that's how Baba's messages, discourses, and certain writings got printed through his finger signs, facial expressions. And the emphasis I had to lay was just because of his facial expressions. Baba was not only a perfect person, but Baba was a perfect producer and a reproducer of his thoughts through his gestures. So Irwin and Edward, this is how gestures and words were spelled out by me.
You once mentioned that Baba would have you say the 100 names of God before him. And how would he go about that with you? Would he have that you repeat that very slowly? What would occur when he would have you do that?
Well,
What was the expression and the feelings?
you see,
You with that?
yeah, you see, the thing is, you ask me about how would Baba express himself when I would read out to him the 101 names of God. You must know that in Zoroastrian scriptures, the language is Zand, it is called, as it is called. It's not Persian, it's called Zand. And Avesta is the holy book. So, means the Zoroastrian scripture. In that, there are 101 names of God in the Zand language. As children, we are taught by our parents to repeat the names, 101 names of God, almost every day. To be very fair and frank to all of you, I must say that I do not remember the 101 names by heart now. But there was a time, years on end, when I used to repeat the 101 names every day because my parents wanted them to be repeated. Little did I know the meaning of the words or the significance. But it so happened that once Baba sat down with the Mandali and gave us the meaning of each name of God in English. And we jotted the things down, names down against each Zand name that was there in the scriptures. And then we got that name, English translation typed out. And then very frequently, I should say, Baba would ask me to repeat those names, read them out to him. Every name that I would repeat, you see, he would just gesture how perfectly said, how perfectly named is God. What glorious name for him. What a marvelous thing he is. How beautiful he is. How effulgent he is, and so forth. So with every name that he himself had given in the translation, he would marvel the way the name was given to God, you see. It was so appropriate, so beautiful a name. Well, this is how I used to repeat frequently. Even a few days before Baba dropped his body, he asked me to repeat the names of 101 names of God. And I repeated them. And they are really very good. Really very good. It gives some idea as to who God is.
Do you recall any incidents of Baba's awakening his compassion, where you started to really become aware of his compassion?
Well, you speak about his compassion to me. Well, yes, he did awaken in me the conviction of his avatarhood through the feelings that I had about his infinite compassion. Well, Baba is to tell us all that he is the avatar, that he comes again and again, that he is the ancient one, he is the one sought by all, and so few find. How blessed we were to have found him, how much more blessed we were to be living with him. Well, all these delighted our ears. Was there anything in our hearts? These were the words from the perfects of the Ancient One. As I just now said, they delighted my ears, you see. That he was the avatar, that he was God in human form. But how am I to know that? My ears heard this. My eyes witnessed certain phenomenon. But how can my heart be convinced of the whole thing? How?
That's the question.
Well, as you say, that's the question. I'm not made of one who would readily take in things. I started, you see, analyzing different things, you see. Well, I used to say, Baba is a good man. Baba is really kind. Well, Baba expresses affection. And that was very happy to witness all these things. But then, all these things did not convince my heart as to he is the same ancient one. There can be kind persons, good persons, loving persons, affectionate persons, and so forth. Then it so happened that we went out with Baba, you see, on tours. And in a crowd of hundreds, you see, people would just turn their heads towards Baba and start gazing at him. So I used to notice this phenomena also. And I would say that, well, he shines out amongst the people there. He must be somebody great. Somebody, he is somebody. But can he be God? Can he be the God-man? Well, then again some months and years would roll by and I would get another proof. All of a sudden, you see, some must, God-intoxicated soul, you see, who had been sitting for years together at the spot, would jump up in attendance in presence of Baba and start glorifying him in words which are not commonly given out to any person. Well, my mind started saying, well, there must be something in this great man. Then another must, and another must, who had never contacted him, they testified to his divinity. Well, they can see. I just gave up. I said, well, they must be seeing certain things within Baba, seeing his divinity, seeing his being divine, that makes them say these things out spontaneously. But what about my heart? I can't see anything. I can't say with conviction that he is the avatar. He is the God-man. Although I have been living with him, although I am being in his proximity almost all throughout the day, you see. And yet, what has happened to my heart? Why does not the heart open, you see? Then Baba gave out that message which consoled me and comforted me, that love is the gift of God to man. Well, I waited patiently for that gift. Maybe one day he might pour into my heart that love which might help me to testify as the other musts have done to his divinity.
What were some of the things that the must would say that you heard?
Yeah. Well, the musts would glorify him, you see, spontaneously, that he is the one on whose shoulder rests the responsibility of the world. That if he wills, with one breath of his can split the earth into two. That he is the one who is awaited for so long. Some would say that he is Lord Krishna. Another would say that he is the one for whom I was waiting so long. And so forth. These things are all given in the Wayfarers, you see. Not all of them, but some of them have been given like that. What I am saying...
But you were there when they said some of these things.
Yes. So these sayings of these musts, you see, God-intoxicated people, help me a great deal to pay heed to what Baba would say, I should say. But what made me feel convinced about his divinity is something different. And I am coming to that point now. And that was the exercise of his compassion, his exercise of infinite love, infinite patience. I had heard these words, you see, and I had heard this adjective, infinite, you see. To what length you can stretch it, your imagination cannot reach there. My imagination cannot reach. But then there must be a limit, you see, because my imagination has limitations. But I stretched it to its very limit, you see. And I found that his love could not be trapped in my imagination. His compassion cannot be trapped in my imagination. It was far, far beyond it. I remember on several occasions when a person, any ordinary person or even an extraordinary person or a saintly person would have got exasperated. But his patience, his infinite patience stood out in bold relief, you see, and gave me comfort, helped me and made me feel at home with him. When somebody would have just given a blow on my head and driven me out from his presence.
Can you give an instance of where you saw this patience of Baba?
Yes, one instance, it was a daily recurrence, then I felt. Because as I was able to decipher his gestures with greater speed, his finger movements gained greater and greater speed. They were having more speed than I could decipher, you see. And it so happened that a day came when my eyesight somehow or other could not, catch up with his fingers that were snapping here and there, you see. And there would be obstruction in the flow of Baba's thoughts. When, you see, what happens is, thoughts come out, Baba gives out the gestures, because he is a perfect person, a human, a man amongst men. He's not, when he comes down as the God-man, it is a great blessing, a boon on mankind, that he mingles among men as man. He is God, but he condescends to come down for our sake and mingle amongst us as man. And as man, naturally, he expresses his thoughts through his gestures. And you know the speed of the thoughts, and you know how the gestures are. Baba's fingers would move with great speed, but then I must follow them and catch hold of the gestures. I would fail, and again he would repeat. And mind you, it was not repeating only amongst ourselves, before a crowd of thousands of persons, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. And there you should see how it is, you see, when there is a bit of hesitation or anything of that sort, it tells upon the psychology of the crowds. But even then he exercised his patience. I could feel that. I could feel my weakness, I could feel my shortcomings, and I felt as if that I could read. And at the same time it was a nice lesson to me, you see. I thought that I never paid any heed, that I never prepared myself that Baba would say things and then I must figure out and I must give out the gestures like that. It was all spontaneous. There was no, clairaudience or clairvoyance or anything of the sort. You see, nothing of that sort. It was just pure mechanical thing, you see, through practice. So, and then, before the whole crowd, you see, when I would just hesitate or mumble out certain words which were not coherent or anything, he would pet me and he would comfort me, and then again he would slow down and then repeat all the gestures and give out the message. That's how, after years, you see, I felt convinced about his infinite love, his infinite patience, his compassion. Now what to say about his compassion, you see? You all have heard and read about Baba's contacts with the poor, with the leper. With the leper he would become one with them. With the blind he would be one of the blind.
We know very little bit about this here, Baba's work with the lepers and the poor and the compassionate side of it.
Well,
a little bit that's been written.
Well, the thing is that...
But you were there?
Yes, I was there. The thing is that when he would be... sometimes he would express a desire that he would want to contact, say, 101 lepers, or say 51 lepers, or say 7 lepers. So what we had to do was to go hunt out these lepers and bring them to Baba. You just imagine, you see, how kind, loving and compassionate he is. He would take great precaution and care for our bodies, that we should not come in the direct contact of the wounds, or that we should touch them, or that we should handle them as Baba would handle them. Baba said that his handling the lepers was absolutely different from our handling them. And therefore we had to take great precautions that we should not touch them. We should be away from them. He was very kind, he was very loving, he was very concerned about our health also. So we would hunt these musts out, bring them to him. No sooner he saw the whole file of these musts, you see, arranged before him, he would feel so happy. He would express his happiness through a beaming smile and just nod at them and make them feel at home in his presence. Then he would go to them and express to them how happy he was that they had come to him. And then each one would be petted by Baba. And then we would make all arrangements for Baba. The most significant thing that he did was that he would ask each individual leper to approach him. The leper would approach him. There was a special table made up for that purpose, which is put in the museum room at Meherabad.
Yes.
You have seen that, yeah. So there were some steps there, a table-like thing. Then the steps would take them down. So Mandali would handle them to the extent that they were just made to go on the table, and that too very delicately and with great precautions. As soon as they stood on the table, well, Baba was very happy. He would be sitting on a chair in front of them, look at them, just express how happy he was to see them. Then he would comfort them, saying that, well, they should not feel that God has given them a certain disease which is incurable, or that God has neglected them, or that God has nothing to do with them. On the contrary, they were very close to God, because their disease makes them secluded from the rest of the world. Baba, I have heard once or twice Baba comforting the whole lot of the lepers who had come there, says, look here, dear ones, how fortunate you all are because of this natural calamity, that so-called calamity that has come to you people. Yogis and those aspirants who aspire to reach God, they leave the world. They have to fight to leave the world and go to secluded spots and remain aloof and segregated from the world. Here you have got a ready chance where the world leaves you and you are left there. You have not to bother about them. So this is such a good opportunity that God has bestowed upon you people, that wherever you are, think of Him. Think of this disease, so-called disease that you have got, as a boon, as a blessing, that the world leaves you and you are there in direct communion with God if you wish to. Then he would say, how beautiful are these souls in dirty cages, you see. Then this he would tell us. Then he would take their feet, you see, wash their feet, and then dry them with a new towel. For each pair of feet, he would use a fresh towel, fresh napkin, dry them, and then put his beautiful forehead touching their feet, their soles, and then he would bless them with his own prasad, a gift from God to man. And that we don't know what help that provides, you see. Sometimes it would be in form of a bundle of new clothes. Sometimes it would be in the form of currency notes or coins. Sometimes it would be a bundle of grain or sweets, packet of sweets, whatever it be. That would be a sort of a contact between the God-man and man as leper. And then, or sometimes he would give blankets to them if the season is cold or winter season. So likewise, each leper who came in front of him was comforted, helped, and love was bestowed upon each one, and each one departed, you see, got down the steps with shining bright faces, you see. We have seen these people coming, you see, as if they were discarded, they were thrown out of society. But when they left Baba's presence, they felt the dignity of their being on this earth. They felt that they were some persons who were also needed by some. And thus Baba would contact them. So often he has bathed these lepers. We would try to see that Baba's hands wouldn't touch their souls. We would try to put gloves on Baba's hands. We would try to cover Baba's body. What would happen, you see, when Baba would wash their feet and all that, the table you have seen, he would be sitting like this. The table is like this. All the water would just pour here, you see, on his own body, on his own legs and thighs and feet and everything. So we would try to put a Macintosh or something like that, you see, so the water doesn't touch him. But after a while, his kindness, his love and compassion is so great. He knows that we love his body. He knows that if he wouldn't permit us to protect his body or to tend after him properly, we would feel displeased. So he would please us by allowing us to do these things. But after a while, very gently, he would remove the things, you see, and be his natural self. And again the same story repeats. He is drenched with the same water that had washed the wounds of the lepers. From head to foot, you see, he is drenched with the disease, so to say. He would embrace them. He would kiss his feet. But he would take great care that we never imitated him. We never did the same thing as he did, because he is something different. He becomes a leper amongst the lepers. That's a different thing. We as human beings cannot do such things. He never wanted us to do these things. He never wanted us to go and contact musts because he did it. He never wants us to contact lepers that he did it. Yes, he wants us to respect them. He wants us to give them a place in society. No doubt about it. He wants us that we should help them. But he does not want us to imitate him in different respects, that we saw him doing, bathing the leper and touching his feet or touching his wounds or doing this or that. He wanted us to take great care of our health. So that's how he contacted the lepers.
Could you tell us a little bit about Baba's compassion with the mad, when he would collect and have the mad people brought to him, the insane?
Yes, when Baba collected the mad, the same story is again, naturally the Mandali around him. After all, what are these people who were around him? What were they doing? They had to do nothing but to do whatever he ordered them to do. And what I felt when Baba contacted the mad. The thing is that, to begin with the story, the most important thing is Baba giving us directions to go and hunt the mad men and bring them to him.
Yes.
Well, it's the same story as we go out hunting for the musts or the lepers or the poor or the sadhus or the saints, you see. We go from place to place, try to pick them up, put them in any conveyance like a horse carriage, a tonga as we call, or a bullock cart or a car or a bus, and bring them to Baba. So naturally, we collect a lot, say a group of, say, 10 of the mad, and bring them to Baba. As soon as they are brought to Baba, they are sometimes very mild, sometimes they express their violence through hand gestures, or they have got expression, you see, wild expression in their eyes, and so forth. But I found out that the way that Baba handled these mad people, he handled them with such tenderness, with such love, that even their madness was, so to say, affected favorably. That they became almost mild in presence of Baba. While we knew the difficulties with which we brought them, and we wondered whether they were really mad in presence of Baba, or what had happened, were we mistaken in bringing such people to Baba. So we found that in Baba's presence, they somehow or other calmed down. And the way that he would handle them with love, you see, and they would respond with love. with affection. To such an extent that I have that experience, that just as when a dog, you see, is given food and looked after well and tries to follow the master, so also even the mad people who cared for none, you see, whenever Baba would come, you see, they would just wait for his coming. As soon as he came and he went from one place to another, they would follow him. You see. They would leave their seats and follow him. They would take cognizance of his presence in their midst and just be with him. And then Baba would play with them, joke with them, just put his hands round their shoulders and walk with them. Or just say, take a bet with them, you see, that, well, you will be all right, you see. Well, there is nothing wrong with you. These people are mad people, Baba would say. These people who look after you are mad people. You are very sane. Don't worry, you see. Be happy, he would say. Be happy. Well, that gives them some sort of, I don't know, inner help. Or whatever psychological difference that made, you see, I couldn't register that, but I could register it, I could witness it through the change that took place in them. How it worked, I did not know, but the results could be seen.
Also,
and he would not only do that, they would know, they would register that he is the one who is the Lord over all these sane people, so-called sane, as well as the so-called affected people who they were. But he being the Lord, how is it possible for him to clean their toilets? How is it that he condescends to bathe them and crop their hair and all that? He would look after them, he would scrub their backs, he would clothe them properly, bathe them properly, you see. What is it? Who is this person? So even the mad started thinking in terms of who the man is, which is an impossibility for a mad man to give cognizance to a person in a sane manner, in a rational way. And that's how, before my eyes, I have witnessed such scenes that these mad, who were brought as mad, returned as sober and saner persons.
This reminds me of some of the people that are attracted to Baba after taking many, many drugs, and how fast the mind is working. Baba said, like, mind working fast is mad, and under the influence of many drugs, the mind begins to go very fast, like a madman almost, but not quite. And how when they are drawn to Baba and they begin to feel his love, they begin to gradually feel that the drugs, the intoxication of the drugs are not necessary anymore, but it's the love that they are really in need of. And this is what begins to calm them down, apparently, and draw what I've seen, many of the Westerners that were on drugs to Baba, by just looking at his picture or hearing his words.
Well, it is possible, I should say, because I have seen with the actual madmen. These people of whom you speak, as the boys and girls who took drugs, yes. Well, they were not mad.
No, no.
Well, but they were sane, but because they were under the influence of drugs, you see, their mind started working fast and faster still. But then, when they came to know of Baba and his compassion and his love, naturally they discarded the drugs, because his love, the stories they heard of him, or the influence of love, which is still pervading on the earth, you see. Because as Baba said, even though he has left the body, physical body, the God-man's physical presence on earth has its own pressure. His love, his compassion, his everything, you see, is still there. That is tangible, that can be felt.
Also,
because we are still in the era of the God-man.
See, also, like, sometimes people feel that it's a madman, it's better off to be a madman, and he's away from the problems of the world and so on, and they feel that he is in a different state, and therefore he doesn't suffer in a sense where it's really considered to really be a lot of suffering. What of this here?
No, that is wrong, you see. Madman suffers a lot, as Baba has said. He suffers tremendously much more than an ordinary human being who is supposed to suffer, because his mind is working very fast. He cannot decide things. He cannot think rationally, you see. He does not know. He does not. He is not responsible for his actions, no doubt. we say that he's not responsible for his actions, but his actions are correlated to the fast working of his mind, you see. And because the mind works fast, he does many actions that are not proper. They suffer. But to think that they are not suffering or that they are not cognizant of their suffering, well, it is not proper to think that in that fashion, you see. Because their suffering is terrible, as Baba has said. Why do I also say that they do suffer is because I have witnessed their suffering in a way from their faces, their facial expressions. When they come to Baba, we find that they are suffering souls who have come to Baba, who have been brought to Baba by us. When they leave Baba, after Baba gives them orders to leave, they are persons whom we have witnessed as having calmed down, cooled down, having had a smile on their faces, a cheerful way of contacting other human individuals, you see. Yes. When they came to Baba, they didn't want the world with them. They were their own world, you see. But when they left with the world to be among the worldly. So that's how, you see, Baba would work with the mad people, you see. Why he could do that? Why he could make the mad feel that he is theirs? Because he would become one of them. That is the secret, you see, and that only the God-man can be. He has to become one with, he is that. He cannot dare to be other than what they are, you see, because he is one of them.
So it's through this compassion of Baba's that you began to recognize his avatar.
Yes.
You would say.
Yes. Through the expressions of his compassion, his infinite love, his mercy, his kindness, all this made me feel that he must be what he says, the Ancient One. And then, in the later stages, I became quite convinced about his avatarhood. Because any ordinary person, you see, expresses his affection, which we call love. Any ordinary person expresses his patience. There are limitations to that. Then there is an extraordinary person who expresses the same thing with a greater degree or greater intensity. But then there are limits to that too. But when, in the case of Baba, I found that there were no limitations. We tried to exasperate him if we wanted to and test him. But then his patience stood the test. His love stood the test. His affection stood the test. Everything, you see, we found that we had limitations, whereas his attributes had no limitations. And that's what made me feel convinced of his Godhood. Indirectly. Because God is infinite patience, God is infinite love, God is infinite kindness, his beauty, everything. So if God is this, then this man who has these attributes, he must be God. So that's how I got convinced of Baba's divinity and his being God-man. Ada asks me whether I can recollect a day when I could call it to be the happiest day with Baba. To be very fair and frank, I must confess that I cannot recollect any such day, you see. Because to be with Baba was a great privilege. To be near him and to abide by his wishes and to obey his orders was our happiness. Of course, when we talk of happiness, it's a relative term. There is also misery. There is also hardship. Because these are all relative terms. But I must tell you one thing, that I really felt happy on several occasions when he would say that I was his. That filled me not with the fleeting joy, you see, but that gave me strength. And the strength that I had through these words encouraged me to pass my years in his presence. Because I must confess that to be with God-man is not an easy task. to abide by his wishes, to carry out his pleasures, is not a joke. It's not easy at all. Only if he wills it can one be with him. Otherwise, there are innumerable instances when daring persons who have come to him to stay with him, who have dedicated their lives, who say that they have surrendered, they have failed because his pleasure is not there. No sooner he expresses his pleasure, we can have the courage to be near him and live with him. And when he said that I was his, well, that was my happiest day. Moreover, he always used to say that, hold on to me, catch hold of my hand, catch hold of my daman, don't let it go. But my past experience would always give the answer, Baba, I implore you to catch hold of my hand, because I am such a weakling that I have no strength in my grip. So it is, if you were to hold on my arm, it was impossible for me to be away from you. But if I embolden myself to say that I will hold on to your daman, there is a possibility of my grip getting loose over your daman and you slipping away from me. So there another day came when he gave me an assurance that, well, I will hold on to you. And these are the little things, you see. These are the little things that made me stick to him. To say that these are the little things that made me stick to him is also false. It is he who made me stick to him. It was his grace that kept me near him. It was his pleasure that made Eruch be with him. Otherwise it is impossible, I should say. Impossible to be with the God-man if his pleasure is not there. Well, what else had you asked me?
Coach him.
Well, it's a very good query from you, Irwin. First assurance that Baba has given is that whosoever remembers me must know for sure, certainty, that he will be with him. No sooner one remembers him, one finds that one is communicating with him, is in communion with him. Then another assurance he has given is that whosoever repeats the prayer, Master's prayer, will benefit from the repetition. Third assurance has given is that read all my works, read all the messages that I have given, read all the discourses that I have given, and from that try to keep in contact with me as much as possible. Try to find out the ways that pleased me. Try to find out what made me happy and what I disliked.
Did Baba ever speak to you about after he would drop his body? Did he ever say anything to you about that? About after he left his body?
Yes, he did say that after he would leave his body, there would be many people coming in his name, trying to contact him, trying to be near him, but that will be too late for them, for their thinking. They would feel that they have lost the chance, but they should not feel any distress over these things, because he says that I, being God, am eternal, had come as God-man with the body, had condescended to come as man amongst men. Body has dropped. That doesn't mean that God is no more on earth. God eternally is. And because he is, his love is there. His compassion is there. His presence is there. Because how can you call Baba the God-man and say that he is no more amongst us? Baba said that he, being God, having come as God-man, can drop his body as man, but as God he lives eternally, not only in the hearts of those who love him, but also in the hearts of those who do not even know about His presence. For one day they will also know His presence. That's how we find, Irwin, that people who have not heard of Baba, say, for a long time, while he was on earth, that there are many boys and girls who have just come to know of him. And it seems that they have actually fallen in love with this so-called God-man, who is no more in his physical presence. And from the stories that we hear, from the contacts that we have made with such people, we find that Baba's love has touched their hearts, that has drawn them from a distance of thousands of miles, you see, to India to pay their homage to him. How is it possible that a man who is no more in his body can draw people to him? It's not possible for an ordinary man. It must be his love that must be touching their hearts that draws them so close to him.
Eruch, there is a question that probably a lot of people would like to have the answer for, and that is, did you ever feel in the course of the time that you've been with Baba that you wanted God realization or liberation or some sort of divine experience?
Oh, what a funny question, you see, and especially to Eruch. Eruch came to Baba not for God realization. Eruch did not know that he was going to be with one who is God. Eruch came to Baba. Mind you, I say Eruch came to Baba. Baba is a very loving personality, you see. He is my mother, my father, my brother, my friend, my companion, my everything, including God. But I never came to him to seek God or God realization. I always craved, yes, this reminds me, I always craved to be in his presence, there's no doubt about it. One day, it so happened that the Mandali was sitting in front of Baba, and Baba had the pleasure to ask the Mandali what each one wanted from him. So, well, some said that they just wanted to obey him. Some said that they wanted God. Some said that they wanted God realization. I remember having said that I would want from you the boon that I may serve you as long as I am in body. Then there was another person, you see, a young lad who had just come to Baba, and he was from a very poor family. And he says that, Baba, I would want to have a horse carriage so that I can earn my livelihood when I grow old. And I must tell you now at this instance that he did own a horse carriage, and Baba and we sat when one day we went to his place for a must hunt, you see. And we went to his place and we found all of a sudden through accident that he was owning the Tonga, you see. And he says, hello, you own this? I said, yes, I had asked Baba and I own it. And it's a fact that there was another person from Bangalore who said that Baba, he would like to do a roaring business. And mind you, he was just an ordinary person who we couldn't even give a thought that he would be owning a store or something like that, you see. So now he owns a big store and he does very good business. They were very young, mind you, at that time. They didn't have any sense as to what they are asking from whom. They were about 11 years, one was 10 years, another one was 11 years old, you see. But then what we find now, you see, that man really owns a store.
What did you ask?
I asked, as I told you, that I asked for a boon, that Baba may grant me that boon, that I may serve him as long as I am in my body, you see. And Baba was very happy with our answers, especially of the answers of the Mandali, you see. But then he rejoined it. He says, remember one thing, if ever on your own, if you were to ask me or anybody, ask God a boon, first of all, it is futile for any of you to ask anything from God.